Hello mortals, I am the booktube goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. And it is time for another game of Shelve It or Shove It, the completely superficial way to pick books for my TBR based solely on their covers. So once again, I am at Goodreads, new releases by genre for the month. I am thinking in the future, maybe trying to focus my channel maybe more on adult books. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see me have more focus on my channel. I want my channel to grow, but it hasn't really been growing like I want it to. And I think one reason could be that I'm being too broad in my reading. And if I just focus on adult fantasy and science fiction, I may get a little traction. I don't know. Haven't really thought it through, but we're going to play this the traditional way, looking at young adult, middle grade, science fiction, and fantasy. And if you are new to the channel, please think about subscribing. Just hit that button and give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more. Now, we are going to look at young adult first. First up is Among the Beasts and Briars by Ashley Poston. And it looks like some type of embossed paper art, maybe, or kind of looks like embroidery. Interesting design, a very traditional young adult fantasy layout, Among the Beasts and Briars, with the crown and flowers and yada yada yada. So I think I'm going to pass on this one and shove it. Next up is Return of the Thief by Megan Whalen Turner, a Queen Thief novel. So I assume this is part of a series. I do like the cover. I like the little paper cutouts that looks like it's on a little stage. But don't think I want to jump into the middle of a series. Therefore, I'm going to shove it. Next up is Lightbringer, the Empyrean Trilogy Book 3 by Claire Legrand. I have not started this series. The cover's kind of boring. And Lightbringer, that refer to Lucifer? Maybe this is about angels. I don't know. But I don't think I'm going to jump into book 3. So I'm going to shove it. Next up, Charming as a Verb by Ben Philippe. This looks like a contemporary romance. Award-winning author of The Field Guide to North American Teenager. And you know my track record with young adult romances, so I think I'm going to have to shove it. Now let's move on to middle grade. This is a children's book section, and of course I'm just looking for middle grade books that might interest me. First up, New York Times bestselling author Stuart Gibbs' Spy School Revolution. I bet this is some type of series. It is a spy school novel set in the American Revolution. Spy school. I wonder if this is like time travel. Either way, not really interested, so going to shove it. Next up, Cinders and Sparrows by Stephen Bachman. So since we're around Halloween, I'm getting Halloween vibes. There's a pumpkin and some spooky trees. I think maybe this is a Cinderella retelling, Cinders and Sparrows. I am intrigued by this cover. There's a girl, and it looks like there is a magical kingdom that you go through her. So maybe this is a portal fantasy, which I like. So I'm going to shelve it. Next up, Class Act, sequel to New Kid. When school gets real, you can still show the world you're a class act. One thing, it's a sequel. Another thing, I'm really just looking for fantasy or science fiction, and I don't think this is it. So I am going to shove it. Next up, Anna on the Edge by A.J. Sass. Step into yourself. Looks like maybe there's a UFO beam. I'm getting a science fiction feeling from this, but I'm really not getting that much from it. Not really sure what type of book this is. So just based on the cover, gonna have to shove it. Next up, Tristan Strong Destroys the World by, forgive me for if I mispronounce this, Kawami Mabelia. And it's a Rick Riordan Presents imprint, I believe. And I like this cover. I think I saw book 1 of this. I'm pretty sure this is a series. But I love the artwork, and I love the action sequence of these two black kids running in some sort of fantasy setting, but he's wearing contemporary clothes. So I bet it's a portal fantasy of some sort. And he has a magic flower, maybe, and a spear or something. I am intrigued by this. I am going to have to shelve it. Next up, we're moving into science fiction. First up is The Silence by Don DeLillo. Don DeLillo. Sounds familiar, but then again, it doesn't sound familiar. But it looks like there's a glowing laptop, which tells me nothing. So I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is an author I am familiar with, Elizabeth Bear, Machine. And it looks like a tree with fairy lights. So, don't know what this is about. She's a Hugo Award-winning author, but I bet it's about a machine. But what type of machine? I don't know. I'm not getting enough from this cover, so I'm going to shove it. Next up, Bright and Dangerous Objects by Annalise McIntosh. What is up with science fiction? These covers are very simple. It looks like ripped paper or ripped cloth. I don't know what this is about. No idea. Going to have to shove it. Next up, Zoe punches the future in the dick. Oh my gosh, I love this title. It is a Zoe Ash novel. So it's a series by David Wong. It gives me vibes of that Scott Pilgrim, but it's a series. It just may be a little out there for me. I'm sure it's a humorous, maybe satirical science fiction. At least I hope it's humorous with its cover. But, I think I'm going to have to shove it. If you know anything about this author or the series, if this is a series, I am curious. Let me know in the comments. Finally, another author I know, Cory Doctorow, Attack Surface, a Little Brother novel, one of the internet's most interesting authors. Now, I've heard the term Little Brother before. I don't know if it applies to this novel, but my understanding is it's sort of the opposite of Big Brother. Big Brother is the government watches you. Little Brother is your neighbors watch you. So rather than the surveillance state being the government, it is sort of everyone else, the public around you, kind of what we have now. So I assume it's a sequel. It says a Little Brother novel. Cover's really simple. I think I'm going to have to shove it. Now we move into fantasy. First up is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Is this the sequel to Black Box or no? I don't know. The cover's kind of interesting. It's a woman's face, half bird, half face. I'm just not feeling it, so I'm going to have to shove it. Next up, Ring Shout by P. DeJelly Clark. And it looks like a KKK white hood with a mouth for eyes and black hands in the front. So I'm guessing this is a horror novel. Not feeling this one either. Going to have to shove it. Next up, an author I'm very familiar with, Terry Brooks, The Fall of Shannara, The Last Druid. Now, I was a big fan in the first Shannara books, the Sword of Shannara and that trilogy. I think I did another trilogy, but I haven't kept up with it. Love the cover, but gonna have to shove it. Next up, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And yes, I know this author. She did the Darker Shades of Magic books. And it's a very simple cover again. It looks like there's a constellation going through the title words, but the title's kind of intriguing to me and has an intriguing old-timey font. So mostly based on the author, but also on the title, I'm going to shelve it. And finally, The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. And I'm going to assume this is a play on King Arthur's The Once and Future King. So I'm guessing this is an Arthurian retelling. Can't tell that much from the cover. There's plants or herbs, there's a blackbird, there's roses, and there's a pair of scissors. So I'm kind of interested. I think I will shelve it. So I picked 2 middle grade books and 2 fantasy books. The middle grade books are Cinders and Sparrows and Tristan Strong. The fantasy books are The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue and The Once and Future Witches. So choosing one from each category, 1 middle grade, 1 fantasy, I think I am going to go with Cinders and Sparrows. I just like the cover, and I think it's a portal fantasy, and it looks kind of intriguing, especially this time of the year with the pumpkin in the foreground. And for fantasy, I'm just going to have to go with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue because I like this author a lot. I'm intrigued by the title, and I'm not quite sure what The Once and Future Witches is going to be about. I'm especially excited that The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue sounds like a standalone fantasy rather than a series. So let's look at these 2 books. First up, Cinders and Sparrow by Stephen Bachman. It is a suspenseful tale of witches, family, and magic. When a scarecrow climbs over the garden wall, delivering 12-year-old orphan Zeta Bridgeborn a letter saying she has inherited a distant castle. She jumps at the chance of adventure, but little does she know that she is about to be thrust into a centuries-old battle between good and evil. Blackbird Castle was once home to a powerful dynasty of witches, all of them now dead under mysterious circumstances, all but Zeta, and Zeta, unfortunately, doesn't know the first thing about being a witch. Well, I kind of like this storyline. It is not at all what I thought it was. It is not a Cinderella retelling, at least I don't think, but this is a Little Lord Fauntleroy tale. And Little Lord Fauntleroy was from the 1880s or 1890s about a young child in England who discovers he has inherited a large estate. But anyway, this is not a portal fantasy, but I am intrigued. Let's move on to the next one. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. France, 1714. In a moment of desperation, a young woman makes a Faustian bargain to live forever and is cursed to be forgotten by everyone she meets. Thus begins the extraordinary life of Addie LaRue, and a dazzling adventure that will play out across centuries and continents, across history and art, as a young woman learns how far she will go to leave her mark on the world. But everything changes when, after nearly 300 years, Addie stumbles across a young man in a hidden bookstore and he remembers her name. Ooh, okay, this does sound interesting. Had no idea what to expect. Did not expect this. This is not a traditional darker shades of magic type of fantasy that I was kind of sort of expecting. This is I'm assuming contemporary magic realism, maybe. Unless it follows her life all the way from 1714, I believe it's probably mostly going to take place in the 20th century. I hope there's not a lot of flashbacks. We'll see. I am excited to get started. So that's all I have for right now. Again, give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more. And let me know in the comments which books you would have chosen based on their covers for your TBR. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.